How do you tell if a dog is engaging in compulsive behavior versus play? This commenter has a 1-year-old, so adolescent, working line shepherd. They use toys in training, and the dog hyperfixates on the work and the toy, even in fetch. They offer cues before the dog is allowed to chase, but she's over the top excited. Also have a working line German Shepherd. He is almost 8 now, but he spent the first year and a half of his life, so his adolescence, unfortunately in a very understimulating environment. And one of the things that we see from that and some other factors is that he struggled with some hyperarousal, that overactivity in the nervous system. And I was concerned that his fetching activities were starting to trend towards compulsive behavior. So let's first talk about the signs and symptoms of that, and then let's talk about what we might do instead. So many dogs enjoy playing fetch. It is a self-rewarding behavior. It allows them to rehearse pieces of the predatory sequence. Ideally, we are seeing a combination here of object play and social play. Social play is when you're thinking about like all the benefits of play, social play is what we're talking about. So ideally here, the dog is in a brain that's leaning more towards the social interaction than the object. Play is a beautiful conversation. It involves a lot of trust. It involves fairness and communication. Play occurs when the dog feels safe. Fetch can become more compulsive, more about the object, and this can be a big problem. At this point, the dog is not having fun, we're not getting the benefits of play, and in fact, harm is occurring. We're going to see that this type of engagement in fetch is more inflexible. It's very repetitive. This engagement in this activity results in a dopamine hit. It's very similar to what we see in addiction. And so dogs might use that to cope with being under or overwhelmed. You're going to notice in these contexts that the dog does not care who is playing with them as long as someone is throwing the ball. They're unable to disengage to engage socially with other dogs or people. They're unable to disengage to attend to the environment. They're distressed when the game is interrupted or ends. And you're going to notice stress signals instead of relaxed, loose, soft, happy body language. You're going to notice physiological signs of stress, tension. You're going to see, for example, perhaps the lips pulled back long with wrinkles here, tension ridges, excessive shedding or dander, big eyes, spatulate tongue, so curled up, tense tongue instead of loose and floppy, panting from an elevated heart rate, but we know it's not just from the exercise because of those stress signals. Working line shepherds are going to be more likely to develop this behavior than some other dogs. We see that dogs more likely to develop these compulsive behaviors are dogs who are raised or have spent their formative years in an under or overwhelming environment. So my shepherd was behind a privacy fence throughout adolescence, alone with very little stimulation. Our highly excitable breeds, dopamine dogs, are more likely to develop fetch as a compulsive behavior or other compulsive behaviors. And dogs who are more easily aroused, dogs who are susceptible to hyperarousal. We can help to prevent these behaviors from forming by managing our dog's stress levels, by introducing a lot of novelty, a lot of flexibility to the game, so playing in different environments. I really like to play fetch as an on-off switch game if I'm playing it, varying the toy, the item, so a lot of flexibility. We want to respond to our dog's solicitation for play and ensure that their needs are appropriately satiated. If you are concerned that you are seeing compulsive behaviors in your dog, I recommend not playing fetch anymore for the time being. You want to stop that activity, you want to do away with the object that they are fixated on, and you want to consult your veterinarian and a behavior professional. You might focus on different types of play that may or may not involve toys at all. We're going to want to focus instead on activities that promote calming, like sniffing. One of the things that I did for my shepherd, who I felt like wasn't quite at that level but was getting close, is instead of putting away the items entirely, we started doing nose work with them. So instead of throwing them and then he was running and chasing, he started searching for the toys instead, and man, was that great for him. Dogs who are engaging in compulsive behaviors likely have other concerns. We're seeing anxiety, we're seeing chronic hyperarousal or chronic stress. And so we need to address those underlying issues. Those compulsive behaviors are most usually a symptom. I want to also say that something I do see a lot of is dogs coping with stress by engaging in predictable patterns, whether that's a game of fetch or being sort of in work mode, and really focusing on like the next thing to get the treat. What are we doing? And you're seeing they can't engage with the environment. They're not interested in engaging socially. They're almost avoiding. And this is a bit different than a compulsive behavior, but it is, I think, an under-recognized coping skill. A lot of times I will see these dogs do really great in like they're like sports dogs, or they're dogs that have had a lot of like obedience training, a lot of manners focus growing up, and they can perform in those environments, and then in unstructured situations they cannot settle, they cannot cope. When I do high arousal activities like fetch or tug or flirt pole or chase or any of those things with my kiddos that struggle to regulate and struggle with resilience to stress, I'm always playing them as an on-off switch game. And we have a whole collection on-off switch games in our collections. So you want to alternate between the arousing piece and the calming piece. I don't usually do that with cued behaviors. I want more for my dog to be engaging in the calming piece through an activity that will physiologically reduce their stress. So I might throw the ball into tall grass, or a soybean field is really common here, or the woods, so that my dog is running after it but then doing nose work to find it. Or we throw the ball and then they come back and we do a scatter feed, and I'm adjusting how far I'm throwing that ball and how much running they're doing based on their ability to calm. So if they're struggling to calm back down, if they're sniffing frantically for the treats and having trouble finding them, if their body language indicates higher levels of arousal, uneven weight distribution, etc., I'm going to have them run less far until they're ready for that. We're going to match the challenge with the skill level, with the arousal level, so that we can build those skills.